Man, so yesterday was crazy. Tony's dead. I'm kind of sad Tony's dead. But it's going to be very impactful too. It's going to make for interesting repercussions, like across the board. So let's get like right into it. I'm going to speak on Tugs's perspective and then my perspective, because I know there's a lot of like, I actually role play, as do many others. Tugs almost did like a one. Tugs went from like Team Rosa to not so Team Rosa. Like Tugs as a character is like very protective of his sisters, for a number of reasons. But I think like ultimately, I tend to play my characters like very consistently, you know what I mean? Like, but their minds can change, right? Depending on circumstances. I think Tugs as a character. Okay, so let's kind of bring it up to speed. Once again, this is Tugs' POV and interpretation of what he saw. Is like Rosa was 1000% isolated. In Tugs's POV, it may not seem like that from everyone's POV, but I think Tugs spoke to her pretty often and saw what was happening. It was like every moment she'd be around many, there was like the whole stir of like her being a snitch and working with the cops, blah, 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 blah. And it becomes eventually one of those things that you, you know, you do something long enough and eventually it happens, right? And that, like, I don't think she ever, like, necessarily snitched or anything like that, but, like, the implications of, like, her intent and da-da-da-da-da. And Tugs by no means obviously believes that Rosa's intent was generally good. However, and also, I think Tugs even understands why she ended up confiding in, like, Tony over many of her own family members, because ultimately you push someone away long enough, they're gonna just be like, there's no reason for them to have trust in you anymore, especially if it's like artificial, right? Trust isn't something you just like get for free, and if you kind of like throw it away, you know, it is what it is. So, but the thing is, like, I think for Tugs, the big turning point was, nothing in there. It's like when ultimately there was like kind of like the group decision. Not even just a group decision, but more of the, you know, the order came down like, hey, don't get close to cops, right? She still sort of did. And even if like, you could definitely argue that some of what happened was like a matter of circumstance. You know, she was going to break up with him, got a phone call, blah, 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 blah. Like, Tugs gets that, right? But the thing is, it wasn't once, it was twice after the order, and the significance of it. And maybe at that stage, regardless of what the intent was, she was in so deep that the repercussions to the whole of the gang superseded the mistake. Like, you know. But I think that, like, even then, I think Tugs would have been like understanding still, but I think it was the more I did nothing wrong. Like, while she got a lot of it, while a lot of stuff was like bullshit in Tugs's mind, the not owning up to any of it and being like, who gives a shit how it affects anyone else, really was the big turning point, I think, in Tugs's mind. So it'll be interesting. Like, the way it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think it's going to make for good RP. I think what's going to be interesting too is, I think, yeah, Tony, we killed Tony yesterday. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the multiple points out, but I think, yeah, he perma'd, yep. As far as I'm aware, I'm aware. I mean, I could be wrong. There could be some meta. I don't know. Excuse me. I think it'll be really cool to see the, like, this story is not over, man. At least I hope it's not. I don't think it is, but I also hope it's not, because it's pretty juicy. The Mills family is still alive, right? I don't think Tugs really knows the depth of it, but I can tell through, like, Tugs can't tell as much, that connections probably run pretty deep. Clearly. Not to mention they move different. Like, we move loud and obvious. From what it seems so far. From like Tugs doesn't know this. Like, he wouldn't be able to pick up on these things. But the Mills seem to, and those that are allied with them, move differently. So I don't think we'd never necessarily see what happens so obviously, if that makes sense. It could end up being nothing, but it could, you know.